In our lesson today, we're going to practice finding volume and surface area of different solids. And we're going to start off with a quick review of volume and the volume formula. Okay, volume is the cubic measure used to fill a solid. It's how much space is inside of a solid. You find it by calculating the area of the base times the layers in the height of the solid. Okay, so in our formula, V equals capital B times H. This capital B right here, okay, that stands for the area of the base. Okay, so you're going to need to know which dimensions to use for the certain shape that you're working with. So if we have a rectangular prism, okay, well, to find the area of the base, okay, the base down here, well, it's going to be the length multiplied by the width in order to get the area of the base. And then you have to multiply by the height as well. Length times width times height is the volume formula for a rectangular prism. Okay, for a cube, well, it's going to be the same thing. A cube is just a special rectangular prism where all of the edges are the same length. So again, it's going to be length times width times height. The length times the width times the height. If you're working with a triangular prism, okay, it's going to be 1/2, because we're working with a triangle, multiplying the width times the height times the length. Remember, the length is the segment that connects the two faces that are the bases together. The faces that are the bases are the triangles because they're parallel to each other. So the length is going to be this segment that connects the two faces together, the two bases. And then the width and the height have to be perpendicular to each other. So the width would be this value here multiplied by the height, which is perpendicular to the width. Okay, remember it's got to form a right angle right there. Okay, so the width times the height times the length, and then 1/2 of that is the volume of a triangular prism. Okay, for a trapezoidal prism, okay, again, it's going to be very similar. We're going to have to find the area of the base, which is going to be these trapezoid figures here. Remember, to find the area of a trapezoid, you have to do 1/2 times base 1 plus base 2 times the height, and then multiply by the length. Okay, so again, base 1 and base 2 are these segments here, because they're parallel to each other. The height is this segment right here that's perpendicular to both of the bases. And then the length again connects the two trapezoids together, this segment or this segment here. Okay, so these are the formulas that we're going to use to help us find volume. In our first example, it says to find the volume of the model house shown below. And so we can see the picture here of the model house, and to find the volume, I'm actually going to break this up into two different solids. If you can see here, it looks like we've got a rectangular prism with a triangular prism stacked on top of it. We're going to find the volume of each solid, and then to get the total volume, we're going to add them together. So let's start with the rectangular prism. Rectangular prism. Okay, well, to find the volume of a rectangular prism, we just said up above that the volume formula is going to be V equals length times width times height. V equals length times width times height. And looking at our rectangular prism, okay, well, we can call this 9-inch segment here the length, so V equals 9, times the width, we can call this 10-inch segment the width, times the height of the rectangular prism, which would be this 3-inch segment. Okay, and now in order to get this volume, we're going to just multiply our numbers together. 9 times 10 is 90. 90 times 3, that's 270. And the units are going to be cubic inches, inches cubed. Remember, volume, you cube the inches. Area, surface area, you square the inches. Now we need to find the volume of the rectangular prism, and I'll do, the triangular prism, and I'll do that over here. Triangular prism. And again, looking up above, we said to find the volume of a triangular prism, V equals 1/2 of the width times the height times the length. So V equals 1/2 of, all right? So for the triangular prism, okay, let me get the picture back here again. Here was the picture that we have for the triangular prism. The width is right here on the triangle, so I'm looking for this value here on the triangle. This segment matches this segment down here, so this is going to be a width of 9. The height is here, perpendicular to the width, so I'm going to use this value right here, which they have labeled as 2 inches. And then the length is this segment that connects the two triangles together. And so I need to figure out what this length here is going to be. Well, this segment matches this segment down here, which is going to be 10 inches. Okay, so now if I go ahead and I multiply, I know 9 times 2 is 18. 18 times 10 is 180. And then half of that is going to be 90 cubic inches. Now I want to get the total volume. So I had a rectangular prism and a triangular prism stacked on top of each other. I'm just going to add these together to get the total. So if I do 270 plus 90, that gives me a total of 360 cubic inches. Surface area is the area of each surface or face of the solid. It covers the solid, so it's the outside surfaces that you're able to see. If you're working with a rectangular prism, remember that the formula for surface area, S, equals 2 times length times width, plus 2 times length times height, plus 2 times width times height. If you're working with a triangular prism, the formula for surface area, S, equals width times height, plus length times width, plus length times slant P, plus length times slant S. We're going to use these formulas to help us find the surface area of the same model house that we were working with the last example. So again, we have a triangular prism and a rectangular prism stacked one on top of the other. Let's start with the surface area of the triangular prism this time. Triangular prism. Okay, well again, the formula that we said, S equals width times height plus length times width plus length times slant S plus length times slant P. Now, if we look at this model house here, remember, surface area is only the outside surfaces that we can see, and we can't see all of this triangular prism. We can't see this bottom face where the triangular prism meets with the rectangular prism. So we're going to have to take this portion out of the formula. Okay, and the bottom portion is a rectangle that uses the length and the width. Okay, so this piece right here is the bottom, okay, and this is not on the outside. So we're going to ignore this part of the formula when we fill in our values. So S equals, okay, the width, this segment right here is 9 inches, times the height, we said before, was 2 inches, plus, now we're going to ignore this part right here again because that's the bottom that you can't see. So we're going to go to the length times slant S. The length is this segment, which is 10, times your slants, S and P. Well, it doesn't really matter which one's which. So we can call S this one and P this one. The length 10 times slant S, which is 2 3/10, plus the length again is 10 times the other slant, which was 2 5/10. We'll go ahead and multiply now. 9 times 2 is 18. 10 times 2 3/10 is 23. 10 times 2 1/2 is 25. And when we add these all together, that's going to give us a total of 66 square inches for the surfaces that we can see. Okay, we're going to do something very similar now with the rectangular prism. I'll do that down here. rectangular prism. And again, the formula S equals 2 times length times width plus 2 times length times height plus 2 times width times height. And we have the same issue that we had with the triangular prism. I can't see all of the surfaces on this rectangular prism. In fact, I can't see the very top, which is where it meets with the bottom of the triangular prism. So I have to ignore this top face, which again is going to be the length times the width. So one of these is the top. So right here, okay, 1 is the top. All right, the top is not on the outside. So instead of having 2 length times width, we're only going to have one of them. Only do length times the width in order to get us here. Okay, so instead of having 2 length widths, I'm only going to have one. So S equals length times width, only one of them. That's going to be 9 times 10 plus 2 times the length, which we can call 9 times the height we see right here is 3, plus 2 times the width times the height. The width we can call 10, and the height again is 3. Let's multiply. 9 times 10 is 90, plus 2 times 9 times 3, that's going to be 54, plus 2 times 10 times 3 is going to be 60. And if we add all of these together, 90 plus 54 plus 60 is going to be 204 square inches. Now, in order to get the total, again, I'm going to have to add my values together. So I'm going to create a spot over here for the total. Okay, S is going to equal 204 plus 66, which means that the total surface area is going to be 270 square inches. In our last example, we're told that a watering trough is in the form of a trapezoidal prism. Its ends have the dimensions shown. How long is the trough if it holds 12 cubic meters of water? Okay, so we're going to have to figure out the length, which is labeled L right here. And I know that it holds 12 cubic meters of water, which means that that is the volume. So I'm going to use a volume formula for a trapezoidal prism. Well, if I remind myself, okay, I had said before, if I have a trapezoidal prism, that this is the volume formula. V equals half base 1 plus base 2 times the height times the length. So let's go ahead and write that in. V equals 1/2 times, in parentheses, base 1 plus base 2 times the height times the length. And now we're going to substitute in the values that we know. We know the volume, it holds 12 cubic meters of water. 12 equals 1/2 times. The bases are on the trapezoid. They're the two sides parallel to each other, 1 6/10 and 2 4/10. 1 6/10 plus 2 4/10 times the height. The height right here is 1 2/10 times L, the length. Okay, order of operations, I'm going to do what's inside of the parentheses first. 12 equals 1/2 times, when you add these two together, you get 4 times 1 2/10 times L. Okay, 12 equals, well, half of 4 is 2 times 1 2/10 times L. 12 equals, if you do 2 times 1 2/10, that's 2 4/10 L. So to get the value of L, all I'm going to have to do is divide both sides by this 2 4/10. Okay, on the right, that leaves us with the value of L. If you do 12 divided by 2 4/10, you get a value of 5. And so we can say that the trough is 5 meters long. Okay, again, the length of the trough is 5 meters long.